Assistant, yeah.
Or
I was going to say Rita Mary Olszewski, a Sister of Mercy.
Yep.
Yeah, instead of saying sister.
Okay. And then, what's your title? Assistant?
I'm assistant to Bishop Thomas Gumbleton, and that only happened because he asked me if I wanted a part-time position back in 1997. So it's going to be 10 years this December.
Wow. All right. And then I want to, do we have your permission to use these comments on this documentary?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, can you just say that so I hear that?
Oh, you have my permission to use whatever I can say to offer for this documentary.
All right. Thank you. Perfect.
Not from what you did today. You know what you're doing here.
All right, we're ready to go. And so you're just going to talk to me. Do you want to?
Just say who I am and go from there.
Yeah. I got your name. I got your title on tape.
Oh.
So I got that all done.
You don't have to have me say it in front of the camera. That
I
doesn't
did
go on the
already.
thing.
I did it.
Oh, I didn't even do it nice.
Let's do it nice then.
Okay.
I'm just, I'm
okay. Ready?
I am ready.
I'm Rita Mary Olszewski, a Sister of Mercy. And I work for Bishop. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
fine.
Okay. You want me to start in like that?
That's fine.
Or do you want to ask, what do you do?
No.
Or how do you know Tom?
I want you to say that, and
But
I'm
you'll
your
ask
sister,
it.
and then I'll ask you some questions.
Okay, I'll just do that. Okay. Ready?
So just start to do that thing. I'm sister.
Okay, I'm Rita Mary Olszewski, a Sister of Mercy.
And what did you work with, Tom? What did you do?
It was 10 years ago, almost, in 1997, December, he asked me if I wanted a part-time position. And the piece is to be assistant to Bishop Thomas Gumbleton, his Office of Peace and Justice. And so it's been incredible. It's been an experience and privilege of a lifetime.
You probably know Tom's schedule better than Tom, but does Tom ever talk or I know he doesn't brag, but does he ever talk about what he's done? When he comes back from Haiti, comes back from Haiti now, what will he say to you?
He probably won't say anything. If I ask him, he might say, oh, fine, it went wonderful. But then I guess in the course of our time working together, there's so much to get done, the volume. So we just go right on to the next piece, and he's very unassuming. He's a private person, but he's just a humble, unassuming man, and he's a really compassionate human being. We hear about that, but he really exhibits, I think, a gospel compassion all the time. He's brilliant, he's witty, and I think he's got a photographic memory. For example, he'll take an article in The Nation or the America magazine and he'll underline in pen, never a highlighter. And later on it'll be in his recycle bin, which he takes care of himself. But he also might have a piece sometimes that'll say, put this article in a travel file for next November when I speak at this certain location. And the article's there so he can draw on that when he prepares his remarks for that particular engagement.
Tom is known internationally, and literally he does that think globally, act locally type of thing. This is the same man who will fly to Haiti to help Father Jean Just and then drive immediately from the airport back to see some parishioner who's in the hospital. Can you just talk about how Tom can balance those two things and do that?
I've seen Tom Gumbleton land from a trip internationally and then come right back and take off for Ann Arbor to see someone in the hospital there to take the sacrament of the sick. And he also in his own gentle style, we hear about primacy of conscience and also preferential option for the poor. I believe Bishop Gumbleton has a primacy of the poor. When we were working together in his office with the amounts of material that he would give me and I would give him the other pieces, as the doorbell would ring and someone would call for, can Bishop Gumbleton come to the door? And right away he'd excuse himself, he'd meet with a street person, a poor person, someone who just came to the parish door and wanted to see him. He'd take his time right then. Or I catch him when the phone rings, he'll take the calls. He doesn't want anything to keep him from the people, from those who come to the door, to the phone calls he gets, or to other requests. He wants to be open to all that. And so he'll take a phone call and as I'm sitting right there, he just answers them and speaks with the person. It's such a gentleness and a kindness, and he has time for each one.
He does make time for everybody. I'm trying to figure out where we're going here. I'm going to kind of jump tracks here.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll just.
Is there something you wanted to put in there?
Let's see.
She's got her notes here.
Yeah, I do. Try to.
But she's not. The good part is she's not looking at them while she's talking.
Good.
Right.
Yeah, I better not do that.
You can look at them all you want now.
Okay.
Let me go through all my stuff and then maybe it'll cover some of the things you want to say. And if not, then we'll make sure we come back.
Okay.
We have lots of tape.
Okay.
Tom was the youngest bishop appointed when he was born.
Yes.
And now he's really the oldest. You know?
He's a set history because he was the youngest priest ever named a bishop in this country. And then because he extended it for at least 1 year after the required age limit, he definitely holds the record in this United States for the USCCB because he's been serving the longest in that capacity.
Yeah, but it's ironic though that, you know, Tom's views are kind of out of sync with the current Catholic Church, you know, and I guess it comes down to, you know, this irony to me. You know, here is a man who's the longest serving bishop, yet he's out of sync. You know, it sort of comes down to what would Jesus do or say about that?
What would Jesus do? And Tom Gumbleton is the prophet among us. So we can see it so clearly now. We don't have to say that's what he's kind of doing. He's doing it. And he's enabling and empowering us and encouraging us to do the same. But he is the man that was ordained and at the early time of the Vatican Council, and John 23rd, Cardinal John Dearden, his own colleagues, including Bishop Ken Utner, Bishop Shaner, and others, he is carrying that. And I almost see him being like, considering it the Holy Grail. He knows where it's at. He knows where the center and the heart is. And he wants to raise it up and that none of us forget. He calls us more to honor that vision.
And it brings up such a good point. You know, Tom's contemporaries like Ken Utner and Bishop Shaner are passing on now. You know, and can you see how that affects him? Is that affecting Tom? I know he hides all that stuff, I think, well, but
yeah, I get the impressions more that he misses those people. He honors them. He does things in their name, and yet I'm sure he has his own way of grieving and experiencing it. But that's onto himself, for the most part. You know, that may not be, I don't know, that's too personal, and I'm making a judgment call. So I don't know about that one.
You know, who do you see, you know, taking the place of a Ken Utner or a Tom Gumbleton? I mean,
I think that's what's scary about all of us in our church today, because we see women rising up, and married priests, we would be so fortunate. And many prophets among us. I'm just blowing that off. Okay, can I do that all over again?
Yeah, who do you see taking, you know, or, you know, do you think Tom says, oh, this guy will take my place, or who, you know, who do you see taking a place of Gumbleton or Utner? Or?
Probably Tom Gumbleton doesn't think he's so great that somebody could take his place or he'll pass the torch. But in reality, us who know him know he's unique and monumental. And so I guess to honor his vision the most is to follow his message, which is he is a beloved disciple of Jesus, and Jesus to him is really a personal friend. It's so unique when we think of the historic times of the scripture, and yet Tom Gumbleton, through his prayer and through his life, he has just made Jesus his best friend, and it just comes across so clearly in a unique way. And once you hear him speak, that can be better found.
You know, and see, to me that's Saturday. You know, you hear people on TV, you hear different things, and they talk about Jesus, but it's always this strict, I don't get the impression Jesus was against homosexuals, Jesus was against women in the church, Jesus was against. Can you talk about that a little bit? How, you know, these views, you know.
For me in my life, I know I've been blessed with many great, good people, many heroes and heroines, and then even more people that are just doing what they're supposed to be doing and giving that compassion and that touch of Jesus. But Tom Gumbleton is unique, special, and a passionate, powerful preacher, speaker. When you hear him speak about the Gospels, which I think is what compels his life, he knows what the works of mercy are. He knows what being the prophet is and how the one who is anointed. And he's Tom. But when we hear him speak and watch him walk this earth, talking to everyone, being with the downtrodden, the poor, those who nobody else wants to hang with, but he'll buy them the cup of coffee and he'll sit with them and have the cup of coffee. So we have just a leader here, and that's why I think it's so hard to see many times when he's targeted and misjudged, and when it's done with mean spirit. It's just so sad because it hurts so much, because no one like him should be as persecuted, but maybe it's the second crucifixion. There have been many crucifixions in history, but he is much like Jesus.
let's talk about that then. You know, and I know you can't say everything you really want to say, but how has Tom been treated by the Archdiocese?
Yeah, probably the Bill Mary could do it better. So,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. See, she's you know, you know.
Well, I could say since January this year, because that's going to, this is dated, but it's going to be appropriate, right?
Yeah, I think anything.
Okay. Because we're talking in 2007, since January, a lot has changed in the first 8 years that I worked for Bishop Gumbleton in the Office of Peace and Justice. So to see what happened in January 2007 by the official church is just so punitive, it's just so heartbreaking. People like myself, I think, are angered, and then I turn to what he says or how he acts or what I read, and I want to say I want to possess the caring and the nonviolence, the understanding that he's trying to give to all of us. He's taking this on as another step in his life, and he knows there's grace there. It's not what he would have chosen, but he's living the most amazing example he could give. But it is very, very hard and full of suffering for the parish, the being just taken like this and kind of fragmented and trying to grieve at the same time and yet be together, but missing him so dearly. It probably is the crucifixion and then the resurrection, the days before Ascension, that I've never felt those so strongly in my life as till this experience with how the official church has treated and continues to treat him, and yet his own dignity and goodness and esteem and confidence, he can sort out very clearly that bishop in a certain location is doing it because of the exact troubles in his diocese. He knows it's not pointed at him. He can just be bigger than that. He is bigger than that. And so he can rightly figure it out, say the truth, and keep on moving in a very objective way.
You know, I want to try and get some of the stories in a shorter version of, you know, like Vatican. You know, there's Vatican II, there was the 60s, you know, the Vietnam War. How did this influence, you know, you and Tom and people who went through that, you know, or saw that?
I'll see. Yeah, I'm not sure it'd be the best with you. I know the stories of his Egypt conversion and his time during the Vietnam with working with the priests in Detroit, but that's been set.
Well,
And I met him later. I met him when he first became a bishop, because he and Bishop Shaner had their massive Thanksgiving at Mercy Center in Farmington Hills, Michigan, when I was a novice, and I and several other sisters had charge of the chapel. So we were looking for these two bishops to show up that day before the liturgy began, and all the friends and family are coming in. So he saw his picture, of course, in the newspaper, and then we're looking, and one little 11-year-old child walks over to this priest and says, "Uncle Tom," and myself and another sister looked at each other and said, "Is that the Bishop Gumbleton?" So again, it just proves what he's exhibited all his life. So I followed him in different locations where I ministered. He came to speak and do one of the speaking engagements on peace. And when I lived in Detroit or moved downstate, I wanted to come to St. Leo's as my parish and would drive the 25 miles one way just to be at St. Leo's, because the spirit of the parish community and his homily and the Eucharist and the real power of what liturgy is all about and Eucharist was evident.
You know, Tom's been described as a prophet. You know, how would you describe him, and how do you think he'll be remembered?
Definitely, Tom Gumbleton is a prophet. He's a beloved disciple of Jesus and a friend of Jesus. I think one special piece that I remember really well is being in El Salvador and receiving a prayer card. And that prayer card, if I can express it right here, said, it was done by a father, a doctor. Can I scratch it?
Oh, sure.
Maybe I'll just leave this here and I can just look down.
That's fine. I'll probably get a picture of it, so we'll show the prayer card or something.
Okay. In El Salvador, in a delegation of the SHARE group with many Detroiters and Bishop Gumbleton along, we were given some prayer cards. At one point, the one I received was by a Dr. Jorge Laura Broad, and the quote on the simple card said, "Together with thousands of Salvadorans, I have seen Jesus." This time his name was Oscar Romero. And I've always felt that, yes, this time I have seen Jesus. His name is Thomas Gumbleton.
Mm. We were going to ask you, which one of Jesus' disciples Tom was like, but Tom resembles, but really, he really is acting as Jesus,
Yeah.
So,
And it's always so powerful when he has that reading about from Isaiah or from St. Luke, mentioning I am the anointed one, and Jesus finds a place on the scroll, and Jesus reads that. And all I can see is the playback when Tom Gumbleton does it. I know it's one of the favorites to his heart, probably for many reasons. And he probably never wants it to be related that he and Jesus are the equal sign.
Tom would never make, you're right.
Make a
Tom
connection.
wouldn't make that
Yeah.
comparison, but,
Yeah.
there's a Father Solanus Center. Do you think there'll ever be a Father, a Bishop Gumbleton Center for Peace or something like that? Or would...
I guess I'm too close to the situation right now to even think about that or want to envision it. But I know, like in El Salvador, people there will say, we have two bishops in San Salvador. One is Oscar Romero, and one is Thomas Gumbleton of Detroit, Michigan. So Tom Gumbleton has a global heart. His mind, his heart, his compassion reaches out way beyond Detroit. He travels nationally and internationally for peace, whether he was in Dubai, Kabul, Jordan, Baghdad, Mosul. Tom Gumbleton has been to Iraq 8 times that I know of, 10 times to Haiti since I've begun to work for him. He has traveled the Central American countries, Colombia, and other countries in the Southern American region. But he will be there on the cutting edge before the time comes when it makes front page news. He seems to know where the poor are, where the need is, and he's already gone there and given his assistance.
All right, well, now, is there something that I haven't asked
You
you?
really did. I think I got it all in.
You got it all in. See,
Yeah.
that's how good you are. She's working in the stuff, See, that's how the
No,
professionals do it.
well, he really, I guess, I don't know if somebody else already did this in the documentary, but he really believes in that Synod of 1971, where they said the action on behalf of justice for transformation of the world. Is that in anything so far?
Why don't you talk about
Okay.
it? Because I don't even know what kind of question
Okay.
to ask you.
Okay. I know Bishop Gumbleton refers to the 1971 Synod about justice in the world, and one of the quotes he often uses is action on behalf of justice and transformation of the world are constituent dimensions of preaching the gospel. He is the hero, the prime example of that, but he offers that to audiences everywhere. And again, in the Peace Pastoral, which he was part of the writing, he said, and they said, peacemaking is not an optional commitment. It is a requirement of our faith. We are called to be peacemakers by Jesus. And Tom will put that in such simple words and just say it as an ending to an audience, that we are called to be peacemakers by Jesus.
Just reread the first.
First one,
Tom,
okay.
I've heard Tom read that constitutive
Okay.
thing. Just read
I
that.
kind of,
Yeah.
okay. The Justice in the World document of the Synod of Rome in 1971 stated in its essence, action on behalf of justice and transformation of the world appear to us as constitutive developments of the preaching of the gospel.
Now, let's translate
Elements,
that to
it's
English.
elements. It's
That's all right.
Mm.
Let's translate that to English. What that? Because I'm like going constitutive elements, and I'm like, why? What does that really mean in English? If
From
you were
what
to
I've learned
translate-
from Tom Gumbleton, he's saying that action, we can't just let it be anything but real and concrete and human, and that we must be about transforming the world. Years ago we heard about the missions or different places. Now the way our world is, with all the ability to have news in our living rooms constantly and the email right in front of us, I think Tom Gumbleton is saying we no longer can be in our own small spaces. The whole world is ours. And the global heart that he has, he wants to offer to each one, not saying it's going to be easy, but to know the truth, to follow that truth, and to speak that truth.
Yeah, I think you're right. what I'm struggling with is, Tom tells the stories of his conversion in Egypt, and then the story
Vietnam.
about the war, the Vietnam, the police
Yeah.
protesting.
Yeah.
But they're kind of long right now, and I'm trying to find a way to make them shorter. Maybe you
Well,
can just relate to me,
He often tells the story of his time being in Egypt with another priest friend just traveling, and they somehow got lost and ended up in Cairo, but the very, very poorest area. And he just said he saw something that transformed his life. He had never seen such absolute poverty, and how physically the effect was on him. And he knew that he gave him all the money in his pockets, it would be nothing, but he knew where he had slept the night before and where he was going to be sleeping that night, and looking at those people. So that really, he never let that feeling, that experience go. And then he's told about how Cardinal Dearden sent him out to meet with a group of priests who were saying this Vietnam War is not moral and not ethical. And Tom Gumbleton did what his boss asked him to do, and he came back to Cardinal Dearden and said, I listened to them and they got a point. So I just believe that that's also part of who he is and always was. And yet those moments of being who he should be have probably changed him. And I think he feels free to share those with us, thinking that maybe some of that can touch each one of us and make us find that part in us where we can respond.
Eleanor Josias today, Josias just said she wishes, Tom could teach at the seminary, because he really should be teaching.
He'd be the example, he'd be the epitome.
He'd be the example that, they should see. And it got me thinking, he said, young people need to hear his message. And could you?
Yeah, and young people do contact him. Like he will go to college groups, universities, struggling student groups. They'll say, we want you to come to Chicago, come to LA, and we don't have much money, but we'll grab some money we could pay for a ticket for you to come here. In places that they had no money, he'll just say, don't tell them the cost of the ticket. I'm just going to be there. And he'll take extra time when there's a student audience or students in an audience. You can just tell the time he'll take extra and over to hang with them, to be with them. And it's got to be so powerful to a young person. So he doesn't miss that opportunity to go where people want him to be, where the poor really want him to hang out, or the young people are. It's very clear. When he went to Colombia several years ago, to a very poor region in the north, which was a group that was starting a peace community, and while he was there, the government had imposed some arrangements and the community had to move. But even an older man walked up to Tom Gumbleton, and the other people said, I want a relic. And they came and told Tom his message, and he said, how do we say this? And he goes, I have a rosary here, my rosary, I can give this to him. And so he took that man and aside and talked with him and gave him his own rosary. And that man, the story that came back was so overjoyed that he couldn't believe that Bishop Gumbleton would give him that. He's got this forever. So it was a big deal of the little community, and he'll always be esteemed because of that.
All right. Well, have we covered?
Yeah, everything. Yeah, everything.
Because you've answered my questions. Jim, did you have any other?
No, I'm inspired the more I hear. I could listen to this for a long time.
We did world travels. Well, that one book, when I got it out today, the scrapbook of his travel to Afghanistan, I could just do that one. For example, of what I do.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, for an example, one of the things that goes on in our Office of Peace and Justice is to prepare his travel folders, whether in this country or internationally, and like preparing visa work and all the other pieces that go along before he leaves. And when he went with Global Exchange several years back to Afghanistan, how he flew into Dubai, United Arab Emirates, and then on to Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan. And I just think when he travels, he seems to know every airport in the world. He's been at these places, and he knows his way around. He's confident, he's comfortable. But I think it's from the inner center of his heart where he's comfortable with people, his trust in God. And because of that, the man pulls off miracles where he walks.
I can imagine.
And not a letter, email, or phone call comes in that he doesn't find a way to respond.
That
Over the 10 years, I know that's a fact.
Let's bring that up, because that's a very good point. Here's a man who travels and is busy and takes time to see people in the hospital. But just mention that fact that, you know, he gets hundreds of emails,
Yeah.
or make that a complete story,
Yeah.
you know, that,
When he was served as pastor of St. Leo's, besides dealing with the parish leadership role that he had and making time for all the parishioners, no matter what, weddings, funerals, one-on-one, after Mass, the receiving line after a liturgy would be so long that people would say, I just want to be up there to say hello or give them a hug. And then when I realized all the email, phone calls, faxes, and letters, and at some point those things all go through the Office of Peace, he responds to everyone. He has a way of doing it. He's always had that commitment, and he doesn't let it stop. So people will say to me, oh, I got a letter from Bishop Gumbleton last week. And I'll just look at them and smile and think, I'm not surprised. The man is a milagro. I mean, when the Spanish people say miracle, Thomas Gumbleton is a milagro.
and then finally, because it occurred to me, and I'm losing that thought now, was he, you know, he makes time for everybody. He answers all those emails. Everything's important to him. Yet, you know, he's that term you use is, I'm away from the truck here, is that the peace bishop. You know, he's known. You know, can you just? I think I heard Sue Sattler call him that.
Yeah.
He's known as. You know, can you just talk about why he's called? Or there's the. What's the term?
Yeah.
Military ordinate or something.
Oh yeah, I don't even know.
But we call they call Tom
Yeah.
the peace bishop. Maybe just talk about Tom being the peace bishop.
Many people have called Tom Gumbleton the Bishop of Peace or the Peace Bishop, and truly that fits him perfectly, because his message, as Jesus gave his message, and the love, the compassion, the courage, Tom Gumbleton embodies that and strives to live it. Not only strives, to a lot of us who see him once in a while or see him more often, know that he honors that. It's so interesting that when you're with someone more, you can see more about that person. And I just believe it, in my life, it's been only more of an esteem and an admiration because of his ability and the essence of who he is, his genuineness, his true self. The Peace Bishop. I'm blowing it now.
Let's go back again. Yeah, let's just make it simpler. I think you're trying to make it bigger. But Tom is known as the peace bishop,
Yeah.
or you know, we call Tom. You know, just
Yeah.
and I guess maybe an example of how you see it. So just we'll make it shorter. It doesn't have to be very long.
Yeah, I know I hear people call him the Peace Bishop or the Bishop of Peace, and it truly is perfectly fitting for Tom Gumbleton, for what he offers to all of us. He believes genuinely and lives the Scripture, the message of Jesus. He is a beloved disciple. I definitely that too.
That's all right. I think we've done it. You know, I
Yeah,
think,
you've done it. Yeah.
Have you said what you wanted to say? Is there something I didn't ask you that you wanted to make sure? You know.
I really like that piece about what Dr. Jorge did. But I'm not sure my voice wasn't like not cracking when I did it. I like just like to end with it. If you want to say, is there anything else you want to add? And I would just say that.
Okay. What else would you like to add?
I believe one thing for me that's very precious is something I picked up when I was in El Salvador with the Detroit delegation, of which Bishop Gumbleton was on a number of years back. And it was a quote from a Dr. Jorge Lora Abad, who said, "Together with thousands of Salvadorans, I have seen Jesus. This time his name was Oscar Romero." And in my life, I've come back believing and remembering, together with others, I have seen Jesus. This time his name is Tom Gumbleton.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I like that one.
Yeah, that was good.
That's been on my wall ever since we came back from there.
You know, let me get a shot of that card real
Oh,
quick.
sure.
In fact, let me stop the camera and I'll just get a shot of that so that while you're talking. Okay, and then just flip it over.
And the reverse.